Faith does not remove Muslims or their imams from daily practical matters in family life, in business, in community affairs. Faith, rather, is a force that should deepen our concern for our worldly habitat, for embracing its challenges, and for improving the quality of human life.
Dr. Khan is an extraordinary scholar. Today, he works as an independent scholar, contributing to various publications. But he has a long and storied career, serving in our Jamaati and AKDN institutions. Hailing from Chitral, Dr. Khan was in the first cohort of scholars to graduate from the Institute of Ismaili Studies. He then received a double master's from the University of Karachi and the University of London, and went on to receive his doctorate from the University of Toronto. He has served in senior leadership roles at ITREB Pakistan and in ITREB Canada. He has also served with Aga Khan Education Services Pakistan, where, among other things, he established the Aga Khan Higher Secondary School in Gilgit. I would like to welcome Dr. Mir Baiz Khan to share his thoughts on Navroz.
Nawruz has been characterized as the most widely celebrated and the longest and the most colorful Iranian festival. And although it's inherited from Zoroastrian Persian, it is the only festival which is not confined to any particular religious group. Festivals have been part and parcel of communities from the ancient times, and some of them have vanished with time, while others have continued to be reestablished and reinterpreted according to the changing times and changing context. So Navroz is one such festival, which has its root in ancient time of pagan festivals, but it was adopted and reestablished, and its the sources of its origin are mostly religious calendars, epic narratives, and holy books. Historically, Navroz is associated with the legendary Persian king Jamshid. And in Shahnama of Firdausi, a mythical interpretation is given to a great event in his time. The mythical narrative says that Jamshid ascended the skies in a chariot which was built by demons whom Jamshid had subjugated. In Parthian times, that is the first century BC, Zoroastrianism was the dominant religion of the empire that extended from Bactria and Caspian Sea in Central Asia and to Tigris and Euphrates in Iraq and to India. In this, being the dominant religion, it had a lot of festivals. Those festivals were celebrated, but there were only 7 festivals. They were considered to be sacred and celebrated in the religious sense. And these festivals included music, dance, and other festive activities. And these 7 festivals were called Gahambars. These Gahambar festivals were celebrated with the objective of as offerings or to the benefit of the departed souls. As these 7 festivals were associated with seasons of the year, and in that the gratitude was for the creation. According to the Iranian calendar, it was 25th of the 2nd month was the festival for the creation of skies, and for the 10th of the 4th month, the festival was for the creation of water, and the 25th of the 6th month for the creation of earth, and 25th of the 7th month it was for the creation of plants, and the 10th of and 15th of the 10th month it was for the creation of cattle, and on the 30th of the 12th month it was the festival was celebrated for the creation of man. In these festivals, it was the king and the nobles were expected to attend after the religious ceremony to provide a public entertainment. So in these festivals times, during this era, and there were a lot of arrangements were made, but also halls were built to celebrate both of the festival as well of the royal feast banquet that was called Sada Feast. So in this era, in Bactria is a city in northern Afghanistan. Today it's known as Balkh. It was a Zoroastrian center, and where a city was built with the streets and with quarters and with all other arrangements around a temple, a fire temple, where the participants in the festivals would come and celebrate the occasions. So it was at that time, and it was also expected that all would participate to contribute to the cost of the festivals and the feasts. And the rich people were encouraged to give generously, to give alms generously, and while the poor were exempted if they could not afford, they would participate both in the festivities as well as in the feast. So that was the occasion. It was the festival would begin at dawn, and because in the belief, in the Zoroastrian belief, that the departed souls would have withdrawn with the ending, fading away of the old year. So during the Sasani period, the Sasanian are the kings or the rulers. At their time, the Muslims took over, conquered Iran, Persia. But during their time, they were also very important and very vast empire and very powerful empire. And during their era, so this continued, but not as a religious ceremony. The festival of Navroz continued as a secular cultural ceremony or festival. And because in this way, they secularized it so that all subjects of the empire could participate in its celebration. This celebration festival was dedicated to Ahurmuzd. Ahurmuzd is the high master and those who are of the good creations under him. So it was considered to attend by all priests in a locality, and also by the common people were asked to attend their principles of worship and places of worship. So it was not just the festival of the Zoroastrian festivals were around, and there were also festivals of others like Hellenic festivals, like Babylonian festivals, like the festivals of the pagans, they were still there, and also the festivals of Jews. So along with all these festivities, and this Nawruz was celebrated as a universal celebration. So they were asked to participate and attend their principal places of worship. So one of the important and ritual practice was animal sacrifice. It was very important. It was considered to be sacred. And the animal sacrifice, its fat was to melt on a fire to increase its glow. And while the flesh was to make the feast the feast food. But also in the religious ceremony of the Zoroastrian religious ceremony, and there were bread and fruits would be distributed to those who attended, which was blessed in the service after the ceremony. So, and put this, and it was such that, and in terms of rituals, a fragrant perfume would be splashed on fire so that the departed soul would be pleased and comforted, and they will return to their places delightfully. So if we can see that there are two main purposes of this festival. The one purpose is creation, another purpose is to please the departed souls. And their belief was the departed souls are present in the families, even though they are not visible there. And as a celebration, women will bake bread and cake of different shapes, like animals, stars, and other objects, in order to, as an expression of acknowledging the diversity in the creation and also its completeness. So, and one of their beliefs was that the Nawruz first began when the sun first moved. And on that day, it became a day of renewal, hope, and joy. The day would begin with a mouthful of pure, fresh milk and fresh cheese. And the king's table, the king will have on their tables at the breakfast white sugar and with fresh cut Indian nuts. So, as I said earlier, that these festivals were 7 festivals. The number 7 became a very important symbol in the celebration of Navroz. So there would be on the king's table, they would keep 7 grains and 7 twigs of 7 kind of trees and 7 white plates, earthen white plates, as well as 7 newly minted coins. So it was that for the generally for everybody, they would grow 7 seeds in small pots so that they will grow green on the day of Navroz. So for the particular, the scene of barley grow green site was the source of blessing. And it was also an occasion of reconciliation and forgiving. But coming to the Muslim era, and they continued it. They continued on the Sasanian style as a cultural festival of Navroz, and leaving the interpretations, the ancient interpretations or interpretations later on to the communities concerned. Persia was not an unknown place to Arabs when it was conquered, and the Persian kingdom, Persian emperors had extended the frontiers of the empire beyond the beyond Persian borders, and also had ruled over regions where non-Persian populations, including Arabs, lived. So when the beginning of Islam, Persia was not an unknown place, but the king is Muslim, but the connection with a spatial connection with Persia began at a very early time during the lifetime of the Prophet. So one of the reasons for that connection was Salman Farsi, the very devoted companions of the Prophet. And Salman was, of course, Persian. And when the Muslim army conquered, defeated the Sasanian Empire and overrun its capital city, known at that time Ctesiphon, but later on renamed as Madain in Iraq. So the second Caliph, Caliph Umar, appointed Salman Farsi as governor of this historically important Sasanian capital. So, and after, when Imam Ali became the Caliph, he also appointed Salman Farsi as governor of Madain. And that's why Salman Farsi became, because he's really revered by Sufis as well as other Persians, because he became a hero of Persia, and also a model, if you like, because some writers have written that he was a kind of a prototype converted Persian at the time of the Prophet, because that's why he is revered in that sense, as Bilal was a prototype converted Abyssinian. And also one name appears, Suhaib, being prototype for the Greeks. So in other words, Prophet's lifetime, and that the Ummah itself had its pluralistic roots right there at the beginning. So Salman Farsi is one. About him, the Prophet is narrated to have said that Salman is one of us, Ahl al-Bayt. Salman minni, Ahl al-Bayti. So the second reason was Imam Hussein's marriage to Princess Shahrbanu, the daughter of the Sassanid king Yazdgerd. And that was a particular reason. Some writers have written that the Persians became very close to the family of the Prophet and the progeny of Ali. So Navroz Day was also a kind of Navroz celebration. That's why interpreted in certain ways by Persian Muslims. So for example, Navroz Day coincided with some very important historical and historical dates of the Muslim history. and they interpreted saying that Adam was created on Navroz day, and God had covenant, and these are metaphysical, and God had Misaq, covenant with mankind, and that was also a Navroz day. And then Hazrat Ibrahim cleared idols on the same day, and Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family also took Imam Ali on his shoulders to clear idols of the Kaaba. And the Prophet's appointment of Hazrat Ali, Imam Ali, as his successor was the same day as Navroz at Ghadir Khum. So these interpretations, as others had done in the previous eras, so they have been interpreted in that way. But of course, because it is not everywhere interpreted in that way, and we are talking about the Persian Muslims. So as for Ismailis, the Fatimid Caliphs Imam in Egypt, they introduced a calendar, a fixed calendar for the festivals, religious as well as secular. In religious calendars, we know there were 2 Eids, and also that there were 2 other, the birthdays of the Prophet, of Imam Ali, of Hazrat Hussain, Imam Hussain. The important thing is that the Caliph Imam, the Imam Caliph rather, would distribute the newly minted gold coins of the year to his relatives and to the ladies of the royal family, and the attendants, the female attendants, as well as high-ranking royal servants. So in South Asia, as it continued, as a cultural festival, and more that the sultans of Delhi, and they completely patterned their customs, their other expressions, cultural expressions on the Persian pattern. So they modeled it completely, and there were their festivals, and they were really at a large scale. They would celebrate it. Amir Khusro, the court poets, and puts it really gives a graphic details of that arches were set up, and also canopies with 5 colors, as well as artificial trees with birds on their branches, and so on and so forth. So it was a full-fledged and all across the empire or the kingdom, the celebrations would help. During the Mughal time, it took another level. It was penetrated at all layers of the society. It was a joyous occasion, reflected in the clothes, new clothes people wore, and the houses decorated. Games and pageants were held, and the royal instructions were issued. Instructions were issued for all to participate, and it was a national festival during Akbar's time. And when in front of the king, when the Hindu hermits called yogis danced, and he was mesmerized, and he was really delighted with that. Women would visit the palace to see and enjoy the spectacular arrangements. So it is Reza Shah Kazimi in his book, and says that this culture under Akbar was the blending of the Islamic and Indic tradition. It was the best example, and he refers to it in his book. The tolerance, or the spirit of tolerance in Islam. So from that reflected in that this this celebration under the Mughal Empire, particularly under Akbar, it was reflected the diversity, the immense diversity of the subcontinent in terms of religion, in terms of languages, in terms of other practices, all cultural practices and all. They were all encouraged to participate in the national festival, and that was the Navroz festival. So I think it continued. It continued under his, during the rule of his successors, Jahangir and Shah Jahan. And they were one witness to the royal celebration, puts it in a way that, because it was it accounted a variety of, he was mesmerized by the variety of the gifts exchanged between the king and the nobles of incredible value, and he puts it that way. So, but things were changed. Things changed in later part of the 17th century when Aurangzeb became the Mughal emperor. And during his time, Mughal political power declined, and there was a series of wars, according to the accounts, some accounts, and Aurangzeb himself seems to be responsible for that. But in things that he was interested in religious discourse, and he would hold the disputations with the ulama, the clerics, and when he became the ruler, he suspended Navroz festival, saying it was un-Islamic. And it was a great blow to the pluralistic and to the universal nature of this particular festival, national festival of the subcontinent. And it used to be celebrated, the vast empire of the Mughal Empire from Kabul to Bengal. But at this time it became, instead of this Navroz festival, Aurangzeb introduced his own festival, what he called Nishat Afroz Jashan. And that would start during the month of Ramadan and would culminate on Eid al-Fitr. So, to conclude is that Navroz remains today, still remains today as a cultural festival and as universal festival in many ways, because it is still celebrated in Iran as a national festival, and many communities in Afghanistan, Central Asia, and South Asia, they celebrate it also as a cultural festival, as a secular cultural festival. So, but Navroz has been, just to refer to how important it has been, because it has provoked, for centuries, it has provoked the creative power of the poets. And there are volumes of volumes, divans, and where Navroz is poetized, the celebrations are poetized, the beauty that comes to the nature, to the universe, and it is, and those are captured in the thoughts of the poet, and how it was important. So, Maulana Rumi looks at, composes a poetry. One of his verses is, so that deals with the winter. Winter, Maulana Rumi says, winter is a kind of a prison. And then he says that it's the chilling cold is like a cannibal feast, cannibal beast. So he puts it, Baz آمدم عید نو تا قلف زندان بشکنم وین چرخ مردم خوار را چنگال و dandan bishikanam. What he is saying is that on behalf of Navroz, he says, I have come as a new festival. I have come a new festival so that I can break the prison lock, and I can cut the fingers of this man-eater, this cannibal winter, this cannibal world he uses, and also cut its teeth. So this is on well, Nasir Khusru looks at it from a different angle. Nasir Khusru, for Nasir Khusru, and the beauty that comes with the spring in the universe, in the world, is the beauty is not because of the world itself, but because it is the kindness of its designer and its creator. So he says that don't be tricked because the old world is wearing so much of makeup to look as young. This old woman, he says, she could not trick the people who are wise, and it's only unwise who will be tricked by her. And but he puts his here are a few. Here is a translation of a few verses, as he puts it. All affairs of the universe renewed by its designer's kindness. Its face wore fine color silk. Its cheek got washed and adorned by the pearl drops of the clouds. This is how dressed up the old woman on the new year. Her admirers rose from everywhere. She adorned herself to look like paradise fairy, but she is the same person being ornamented year after year. Wise people keep aloof of her. No one but the unwise embrace her. I am not a companion of the world. Fate is my back, the fortification of which is solid, high, and long. Who is the gate of this fortress of fate? That person is he who melted ignorance with the flame of his sword, Zulfiqar. By the help of God, all knowledge of the Ummah is a drop of wisdom from his oceans of knowledge. If you desire freedom from the injustice of this world, you will find it nowhere but in his proximity. Thank you.